rape, gunshots, murder. Call it what you want. We have a name for it now, calling it home invasions. This evening, members of the public, you get the opportunity to understand the legal aspects of all of this and how to treat with it. What is expected of you, those being in possession of firearms and those without. Law enforcement, how your approach should be in relation to your policies. So, Mr. Ali, let's start off here and now. Home invasion. How serious a crime is this in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, Senior Superintendent, this description of criminality, where we define it as home invasion, in a literal sense, and just for the purposes of reporting, what we call home invasion can spiral into several serious offenses. And just to give an example, we have burglary, we have housebreaking, we have robbery, we have possession of firearm, possession of ammunition, because sometimes the intruders are armed with firearm and ammunition, offensive weapon, trespass. And I can go on and on in the context of where they go further to rape persons in the home. So this issue we're talking about home invasion, I want to immediately indicate and place on the table that it is very broad, it is very disruptive, and since 1604, Senior Superintendent and Marlon, Sir Edward Coke, an English judge, spoke about the sacred and where a man's house or a man's home is his castle and fortress. And when you see persons who are inclined to infringe or to intrude on that sacred right of that individual, as Sir Edward Coke identified, even he went as far since 1604, before the laws were couched in terms of properly for self-defense and use of force. He spoke about where a homeowner could even get together with his neighbors and friends to defend violence that is perpetrated against his home. So I just wanted to open by recognizing that this matter that we are describing as a home invasion, if we put the lens on it, it is a very, very serious act or acts of serious criminality in Trinidad and Tobago.
But is it viewed as that in a court of law?
Well, immediately, I do not know whether they look at it in that context. I know it's coming out of home invasion, there will be sometimes persons who are charged with a number of offenses. But where I would like to see us go, Senior Superintendent, and I want to take this opportunity to make a salient call for the authorities to have a look of the Larceny Act again. Have a look at the offenses of burglary, housebreaking, and those offenses that are related to this issue that we are calling home invasion. Maybe the time has come to use the law to upscale the penalties as a start to look at a deterrent. When you look at it right now, when we speak, 5, 8, 10 years in relation to these offenses. And may I humbly say as well, that while you are looking at the criminal aspect of things, the consequences that flow from it. For example, you have children in your home, their right to education, their opportunity to focus, that mental and psychological effect. So in looking at increasing the penalties to ensure that we cause a deterrent in the first instance, if not detection and persons are convicted and save some healthy fines and sentence, it's important to understand how significant and why we need to review this as soon as possible.
You know what is most important here? The way that such an incident affects you mentally.
Yeah, the impact. That impact is I am telling you from my experience, says with persons, that impact. There are some persons who they are yet to recover after a number of years. And you spoke about 5 or 10 years penalty. Is that in a high court or is that at the magistrate court? Because I cannot recall my term here as a police officer. Anybody in the low court would have amounted to that type of sentence. So I don't know. That's why I asked you, I wonder how they are looking at it. and Marlon often say this on this program, if those persons in a court take into consideration the impact that it has on the citizen or the victim of that crime.
Well, I like where you're going there. Apart from the victim, let's say there's a detection and someone is prosecuted. Where I would like to see, and I'm not saying that is not probably happening, but where I would like to emphasize is that the feeling and the expressions of the victim, apart from giving the evidence in relation to what transpired, this, and as Marlon indicated, the impact on the victim and the victim's family should also be taken seriously into consideration when we are thinking about imposing sentence and fine. Now, you spoke about 5 to 10 years, that I identified earlier. What you have maximum penalty that is in the law books. But then there's a discretion on the judicial officer to say whether he or she wants to impose 10 years, whether he or she wants to impose 8 years. So the whole circumstances have to be looked at. And this is where we are saying that in looking at the circumstances, and even for law enforcement, when a police detective is taking a statement from a victim, where I would like to see the police detective or the detectives go, is clearly bringing out in that statement that impact at the time of the crime and then subsequent.
As a result of?
That's correct. So this is where, in terms of our 360 approach to really dealing seriously with this crime, I think the time has come now for us to shine some light on this particular area of the criminal law.
Wow.
To me, I think that this has become commonplace in Trinidad and Tobago. This is a part of the new normal because in recent times we've been seeing that persons going into persons' home and really intruding.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It is an intrusion. And we as a country, I agree with you, it needs to be looked really in a sort of broad, holistic way, and the impact it is having on each member of the family who would have been affected during that invasion.
Yeah. And let me also ask legal officer, Mr. Ali, this. In a court of law, you just mentioned that you would like to see the detectives take that. I observe in different jurisdictions that is something that is considered. They will ask the victim, so tell me what happened after that day, how you're able to go on, and all these things, and take these things into consideration. Is that done here? Are you aware if that is done here at all?
Well, I cannot speak for certainty, but what I've seen is that we are directing our efforts towards the detection of the crime.
Oh, okay.
So once the statements are given, statements are given in relation to the matter, once the elements of those offenses are established, or is established as the case may be, normally we bring a halt. But where we should be going is that there should be a continuous assessment of the victim or the victims as the matter progresses. So when you reach a stage where a sentence has to be handed down, you are in the best position to understand whether in fact, or the level of impact that it had on the family or still having on the family.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just speaking the family. What if it occurs in a community? We saw something occur in Mearo some time ago. Now, I don't want to speak to it because it's subject to an inquiry. But the context of it, it also has how did it impact the community?
Yeah.
Because it don't only impact the family members, because the community now are bracing, well, what if I'm next? So how does it affect the general public interest? And this is where I would like to see that the law really go in to treat with this in a holistic way, both from a blue-collar perspective, a white-collar perspective, and the assistance that is required for the rehabilitation of the victims of these crimes.
All right, gentlemen, we must go to a very short break. Let's remind persons of our number, 623.
Some men only understand sometimes the thought of another man. When a man sits in the comfort of his home, minding his own business, seeing about his family, enjoying the comfort of his home, as I said, and somebody else breaches that, whether by day or night, it takes this man. By yourself, you'll be all right, you know. You might, when you breach the family's home, the residence, Mr. Ali, it takes you to a different level, you know. I cannot say how much of a professional one could remain if that occurs. I cannot say. I have spoken to many victims of those crimes, and I'm telling you, a man thought thereafter, you have to watch him constantly, you know. He's not on a suicide watch, you know. He's on a crime watch. Because you know why? He feels that he will have to, no other choice. He already buried 2 of his family members as a result of those persons' behavior, and they went to court and walk out on bail. Mr. Ali.
Yeah, those are very, very real and serious issues, and it goes back to that sacredness of the home. And if just to flesh it out a little bit, someone invests and build their castle, they fence their home, they put their necessary protections in place, whether it be cameras, whether it be burglar proofing, and all these things are clear indication that he or she or they intend to keep third parties who are not invited,
Uninvited guests. Huh?
out. So clearly indicating that individual or individuals are clearly indicating that this issue of burglary and housebreaking that we classifying as home invasion are something that he is actually trying to prevent. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is that this individual who has his family, and especially in the case where women and children, where we are seeing situations where it's not only about taking items of value in the home invasion, but actually offenses against the person, sexual offenses. These are things that could place person in a state of diminished responsibility or provocation at the material time. So I want to agree with you, Senior Superintendent, that it's a very, very serious issue, and sometimes I don't know whether the opportunity will give itself, but maybe persons who may have been victims to really have the opportunity to express to Trinidad and Tobago exactly what it felt like when those things were occurring. So persons who are in decision-making position will appreciate further what we are actually saying.
How does, or what is available to an individual, the owner of a home, during a home invasion? How does that person protect themselves? And I'm not speaking about video cameras and things like that. That is already at the home. But someone has gone into the home, is invading your home as the owner of
The
a
actus
resident.
reus or the
How
mens
do I
rea?
protect myself?
Well, I see the senior superintendent laughing, and I think it's an excellent question.
Excellent
Mark.
question, yeah.
Excellent question. And I want us to take
Yeah.
our time this afternoon
Yes.
to deal with the aspect. So we have spoken about the home invasion occurs or is in progress.
Yes.
I want to indicate that no man is above the law. Let me begin with that. No man is above the rule of law. But what the rule of law has given to persons who may be victims of the crimes that we are speaking about. And let's begin with the common law. The common law clearly establishes that when a man is attacked, he can use force that is necessary to defend himself or other persons who may be in a similar position. And that common law has now been imported into statutory law. And I go straight to the Criminal Law Act, which basically indicates that a person, and I'm going to go very slowly because we'll dissect it a little more. A person may use force or such force as is reasonable in the circumstances in the prevention of crime or assisting or in effecting arrest, and it also includes persons who may be unlawfully at large. Now that is basically, in a nutshell, is a definition of the power and the authority that has been given to a person in relation to things that may be transpiring that puts his life or his family life in a state of danger, and the law has given him the authority or the power to act in those situations. Now there are some key elements, Marlon, that I want to identify there. The law, and I'm going to use the statutory law, the law speaks about a person may use such force. The law did not go and say instructive, shall. So they are leaving the discretion to the individual in the first instance to start weighing the circumstances that is prevailing. It goes further may use such force as is reasonable in these circumstances. And that reasonable concept, or that operative word, will be measured in the first instance where you subjectively is weighing the situation. Because that weighing, after you make a decision, will have to be now placed before a competent tribunal to determine whether in fact the force that you use was necessary and whether it was reasonable in circumstances. Someone who may not have been there at all. And may I just go to identify the final point that I want to make in relation to this, to apply it straight to those circumstances, in the prevention of crime. Now, that situation where someone is in your home, I'm just giving it an example, that already, and someone who was not invited, so there's a break-in and entering, with the intention to commit an arrestable offense. That is where that force is being used to prevent that crime and any other crime that may be taking place. I know you have a lot of questions, Senior Superintendent, so I'll stop there and take it incrementally. But I just wanted to establish that in law, that is the law that we'll be leaning on, the victims, in order to defend themselves in relation to those issues that may be transferred.
So in other words, Mr. Hopkinson, I see Mr. Hopkinson, I know he's there. I tell myself from information, whether from his maid or not, he might have lots of money in a particular place. So I...
You say from my maid?
Yeah, from your maid.
Okay, go ahead.
So I get together with other persons, and I storm Mr. Hopkinson's home, armed with my gun. And I say, hey, nobody come take. And Mr. Hopkinson now, who may be armed with a firearm, he didn't get much chance to make a reasonable assessment of his situation, but he would have seen persons armed with a firearm, and in a matter of seconds, he responded. How is that treated with?
Right. So in that particular circumstances, and the law has been couched, and even the jurisprudence with the law, to take care of those situations where at that point in time, that subjective appraisal of the, or I should say weighing of the scenario, an honest belief, and instinctively, and in that case where you spoke about having what? You are armed with an offensive weapon. A weapon that not only offensive but could lead to death.
Yes.
And that particular circumstances, the person, that victim who is armed with that firearm, a lawful firearm that is, and I'll come to the issue where, in another occasion, where a person may be armed with an illegal firearm, but we'll answer a question subsequently. But for the person with the legal firearm, the law has been properly couched to give you the authority to use such force as is reasonable, and I want to add a European term, proportional in these circumstances, in order to, one, to prevent crime, and that crime is where someone might either trying to rob you, intention to inflict grievous bodily harm. That is what we are trying to prevent. So we have also heard sometimes that a person may use such force when their life or the life of another person is in immediate danger. There's also that word of immediate. So in these circumstances, you'll be looking to satisfy those operative words in these circumstances. So I don't know if that answered the question in terms of that person who is armed with a firearm and having to defend themselves.
So you have a situation, what you would have spoken about earlier. However, one individual, the attacker, suppose that individual had a fake gun, and you, being the holder of an FUL, you have the real thing, and you let off some shots on the individual, and you kill the individual. So therefore, when we're speaking about matching force, then there could be the argument, well, the individual had a fake gun, I had a real gun, and I killed the individual.
Wait, listen.
Excellent scenario again. Yeah. Now, the circumstances will always be an important focus, the circumstances. But just to get the point across, at 11:30 in the night, you went downstairs just to check to see if your vehicle there.
In the dark.
And your vehicle, let's say your vehicle is in a enclosed. You don't have the enclosed garage, so you're not going out into your outer yard. You're within, it's internal, it's locked, it's secured. And some way or the other, a person up.
The servers are down again.
And some way or the other, a person up, whilst going down to check your vehicle, came up to you. Lighting condition is not as effective.
So you cannot be sure.
So you see an object which resembling a firearm, and he said, don't move. You didn't invite anybody. You wasn't expecting anybody. Everybody accounted for upstairs.
Upstairs.
You discharge your firearm in that particular circumstances where it's made out that at that time, subjectively, instinctively, honestly, you believe that your life may have been in danger, and immediate danger. And also even thinking beyond you as to what if he gets past me?
Upstairs.
My young daughter is upstairs.
Yeah.
So in that situation, even if it may have been turned out to be an imitation firearm in the course of the investigation, when you give that account of what transpired during that time, it will be left to the Director of Public Prosecutions to weigh the circumstances to see whether in that circumstances the defense of self-defense, which is a complete defense, was established on the facts and the evidence that prevail in those circumstances.
Gentlemen, we must go to a very short break again. The discussion is going well and interesting. We will give you the opportunity to speak to the officers after the... Okay, so we would have spoken about incidents within the home. What about outside the home now? What about you? It's 11:30, as you're saying, and I look through my window and I see men with items in their hands. It appears
AR-15s.
It looks like guns.
AR-15s?
And I'm looking outside and someone says to me, "Go inside before we shoot you."
Boy.
Boy, what do I do?
Well, again, Marlon and Senior Superintendent, excellent question. And let me take it slowly again. This one have to be a little bit more cautious.
Yes.
Someone in your outer yard, and we are taking it in the context where your yard is fenced.
Right.
It is.
So someone come into your yard.
Jump the people's wall.
First thing, you haven't invited anybody, you're not expecting anybody. So I'm giving the context where your suspicion starts to escalate. You said in the scenario a while ago that persons are armed with firearms, and the senior
AR-15s.
AR-15, or what we believe to be heavy powered rifles.
Right.
And you look through the window, and they give some expressions.
Going back inside the house, boy.
So even in the context where in the outer yard, we are looking at a context where at that stage, there's a trespass to property. So let's begin with something very, I don't want to use the word minor, but a trespass to property, because I haven't invited anybody, I haven't consented to anybody being there, and they are in the yard, whether what they're doing. But that expression that go back inside, otherwise I will discharge my firearm, while it's an expression to you, we still have the opportunity, and again, it all depends on the circumstances where, because the firearm has the proximity to reach you, I want us to give that consideration as well. But secondly, I want us to go inside, otherwise I will shoot you. We want to pay attention to the aggressor, what he's saying. Maybe, and I'm just saying maybe, he's not on you. Maybe he's seeking maybe running away from the police and he's looking for a place to hide. But what I want to bring about is that at that point in time when he said go inside, I want us to always look at the alternatives. For example, did we try to communicate with the police? 999. Maybe we didn't complete the 999 call, but because by the time we call 999 in the first 30 seconds, they're up on my door, knocking my door. So what I want members of the public to start appreciating is that, and this is something that comes with training as well, start preparing yourself that if these situations are occurring, once you, so that when the investigator comes, and just give an example, what other alternative you may have exercised in the situation or attempted to or give consideration to. I tried to call 999, the call maybe didn't complete, I didn't get through, but when the record is checked, you can see that any mens rea on your part or any inappropriate conduct on your part will start to be measured. So it's a situation that you have to weigh carefully, but I want to make the point that it all comes back to, if you believe that your life or the life of another person is in immediate danger, I'm going to say to members of the public, like I indicated very early, that survival
comes first.
Is of paramount importance.
Because I think there is a sort of perception and a sort of message that is put out there by high persons in this society.
Who are guns?
It could be lawyers, it could be senior police officers, persons in law enforcement, but they always give the impression that this attacker has to physically touch you first before you act. And that is why you have persons, specifically speaking about persons who are in possession of FULs. And that's why there is this level of hesitancy sometimes for persons to act. Because they feel that the laws are against them.
The concept is that, you know what? It must be something done to you first before you respond. It's just like what I was saying to you yesterday. Who shot first? Who shoot at who first?
Yes.
Well, the law enforcement officer started the shooting first. But you have an illegal firearm, so what supposed to do? Wait until I hear bang from you, right? So you banging me, and then I will bang you back.
Or what do you do if someone is in your yard? Do you first wait until they break down the door?
Right, and get in? Oh, wait, Mr. My legal officer, Mr. Ali. Because we have seen before where persons on the outside of persons' homes with firearms, AR-15s, send back persons and say, boy, go back inside before I kill you, boy. And when they're leaving, you know what they done? They fire a shot, boom, through the window. It ricochets off the wall and stops within meters of the man's child lying on a bed.
A very serious and real situation.
Huh?
As I indicated, Marlon and Senior Superintendent, is something that the facts will always have to be married with the law.
Yes.
And I want members of the public to understand that once they understand exactly what the law requires, then the factual scenario must match what the law requires. So I can give you many different circumstances or many different examples where you can use deadly force, and the circumstances will vary. But there are some operative words, and I want to harp on those operative words. Using force as reasonable in these circumstances, and I want to add in this context where your life or the life of someone, and you know I'm harping on the life or the life of someone, is in immediate danger, because we're looking at an issue of proportionality as well. Once the facts marry the law, most, if not all the times, you are coming out with a complete self-defense in this situation.
Let me ask you this. So a man enters my home. He robs me, take possession of my valuables and all of that. I in possession of a FUL. Upon leaving, I decide to chase him. Yeah? I chase him down for about half a mile. That's my capability.
Okay, go ahead.
So I run him for half a mile. And he fell somewhere. And I run up on him and I discharge my firearm at him at that stage there. What is that? How is that considered? Is it that I am able to hold that reasoning all during that time for me to act now? Is my life still in imminent danger, or I thought that he was going to kill me? So I run him down in order to get back at him.
Again, another excellent example. And it goes what I said before, that there are many examples that or situations that can be placed on the table. In that particular situation, let's go back to the law that I cited a while ago. A person may use force as reasonable in these circumstances, and I want to use this part of it, in assisting or effecting an arrest or persons unlawfully at large. In that particular instance, the commission of the offense comes to an end.
Right.
He may be proceeding away with your property.
Right.
In law, civilian, you have a civilian power of arrest as well.
So I was going to arrest him.
So I
forget to put up.
So you were in pursuit to arrest and to probably retrieve property. Now, I want us to carry with us, while you have that right in law to proceed or to pursue the individual, on reaching the individual, the law still has to be applied in that circumstances if you are to use deadly force. So in other words, it's not about the property, strictly speaking, anymore. It comes back to where in attempting to arrest or retrieve the property, that immediate danger still presents itself to you.
All right.
This is when that force and reliance on the criminal law will still be at your benefit. But it must not be a situation where you are using deadly force when there is no immediate danger. Because at that stage, your objective is to effect an arrest and retrieve the items. If in the pursuit of those two objectives, your life is being placed in immediate danger, then the law is very clear in terms of defending yourself using the force that is reasonable and proportional in the circumstances.
All right. You want to go? Go ahead.
In matters such as these, what we're speaking about specifically is a person's, maybe I can describe it as mentality. Is it considered in that?
Intentions.
Yeah, but you see sometimes when situations face certain people,
Oh, okay.
they go into a sort of zone.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying.
A situation would impact you in a certain way. It would impact me in a certain way. So therefore, there cannot be any sort of, if I can say, template as to how we expect all individuals to act or behave. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
And I'm receiving you clearly, Marlon. And that goes back, the answer to that every individual, obviously, may treat with fear
Yes.
differently. And that goes back to why the law of self-defense has what we call a two-limb test. The subjective element married with the objective element. So when the objective person, whether it be a competent tribunal or whether it be the average man looking at, let's see how Marlon acted in this situation. And the question to the objective man, what would I have done? Would I have acted similarly in the way Marlon have acted? Taking into consideration what was transpiring. Let's say, for example, you are diabetic. Or you are someone who's suffering with some level of hypertension. And situations will escalate those things.
Yeah.
So the individual must be looked at, the victim, that victimology, and that is part of the circumstances. Because it talk about honestly, that is subjective test, honestly and instinctively acting. So it's a split second, and that is how that situation has to be with. Hence why any police investigation involving where a person may have used force in defense or advancing the position of defense, I always advise for the Honorable Director of Public Prosecutions to sit down, and he or she will weigh that situation to see whether in these circumstances, whether your self-defense was made out, or if the police have evidence, the evidence does not rebut your advancement of self-defense in the matter.
Gentlemen, we must go to a very short break again. We'll be right back. Is Alexander.
No, wait. He's a talk about gun, but don't know about none.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. But, Mr.
We have a call? All right, let's take our first call.
Yeah.
Good evening, caller.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Marlon.
Yes, sir.
Superintendent and the officers there. Here, my two short questions, quick and brief. Now, somebody came into your house, and I have a little baby, a young child, maybe about a year, toddler, and he came in to do robbery and all forth, and in the situation, he got jammed up. So he decided to run, take up this baby and start to run. He's not a threat to my life, and I am running him down, and I am an FUL. What should I do in that situation there? Because he, I can say he's not a threat to me, but you running the baby, somebody could go and carry the baby somewhere, I don't know. So in a case of this thing of a set of scenario, and bear in mind that is one. Again, in your house, a legal weapon is that something the government doesn't give you a license for. No, you have a bow and arrow in your house, and the end of the bow and arrow, it is tinted with cyanide in it. So when I hit you, listen, when I hit you that in a few minutes you die here, there's cyanide in here. No, a bandit come inside here, rob, tie up and we tie an arm inside here, and I take that now and shoot him there. Is he a direct threat to me because he didn't know what room I was in and I came out and do it, right? Finally, and the final thing I was stating, the law in Trinidad is too strong for taking criminals. Because I hear there's so much of thing, immediate threat to your life, and this and this and that and that. And the post who die now have no defense at all. And that is why the whole law in Trinidad want refurbishing this colonial law that we have to change that now and come on now in computer and digital thing. We still in colonial law, maybe with books and paper.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, let me acknowledge you, caller. Caller, let me start with your last submission in terms of where you believe that the law may be archaic and need review. I will respect your position in terms of asking the authorities to look at the use of force as it relates to self-defense and also from the common law. So I want to respect your position. But in relation to the first issue in terms of the baby, where someone take the baby and running away, I want us to appreciate that in the scenario that we dealt with, where the senior super indicated person may have taken his property. I want us to understand that what this gentleman is running away with is a baby. This is a human being. This is life. And we do not know what is in the mens rea of that person when he's running away with that child. Whether right there, while running, he cut that child's throat, or put that child, or throw that child into the ground. Correct. So in that context, what I will ask us to do again is weigh the situation, and if that immediate danger is directed towards that baby, so you as a police officer is no longer directed to you, but you are, hear the law, a person may use such force as reasonable in these circumstances when their life or the life of another person is in immediate danger. So again, the circumstances may give you the opportunity to use deadly force, because as a child, the danger or immediate danger to the child, there may be other circumstances that will cause you to believe that that person will in fact inflict grievous bodily harm on that child. So that is scenario number one. Scenario number two, in relation to having, I think he said, like a bonaro.
A bonaro and something to the end of it that is poisonous.
Some liquid. Right. Poisonous liquid.
Right. So in that context, again, now why the callers ask for a review, I want to respectfully ask him to consider how broad that use of force or that law governing self-defense has been drafted. I want him to take a look at that. Because the law didn't identify using a hammer, using a gun, using your fist, using a vehicle.
Oneself.
The law has gone, a person may use such force as reasonable in these circumstances. And in that situation, if at that stage, that is all that you have to be able to use the force that is required to defend your life and others in your home, then
a weapon of opportunity.
Weapon of opportunity. However, I want to also place on the table that if there is a weapon that is offensive and there is no legality to have that in your home, you may have to answer another question when the investigation unfolds. But for the purposes of defending your life at the material time, a person may use, and I use the word anything, so in the defense of their life.
So some men from the normal place who does interfere with person's home and think home invasion, where they normally go now and they die, came to your home, and upon entering the home invasion time, lying on the ground, they're going about the house, they're looking for things, where the money, where this, where that. And while that is happening, one of the men came up to you, strike you a couple of times. While he struck you, his gun fell. And you took possession of that gun. Where do we go from here?
Again, fits directly into the scenario. And again, I ask the caller to understand how wide this issue of self-defense is couched both in common law and statute. There it is again, that the firearm of the intruder, you got possession, of the firearm. The law accommodates those situations. Use that firearm against the individual, because it didn't say use things that you may have. If you get access to things that you did not have, the important thing there is using the force that is reasonable in circumstances. And in that situation, he's armed with a firearm. That firearm falls. He already administering blows to you. What's the intention of this individual? To inflict grievous bodily harm on you? To inflict grievous bodily harm on other persons in your household? Are you seeing death? Persons may have been raped. This is a situation that, again, in these circumstances, that the law of self-defense will be very much available in those situations.
All right. So your question begs another question. For an FUL holder, person stormed the home, and they begin to beat the FUL holder. The weapon falls on the floor. The gentleman's wife or girlfriend or brother or sister or whoever takes up the gun and shoots
That's the place.
and kills the attacker.
Marlon, you are just proving this afternoon that there are so many scenario situations that we
But
can
it comes to
speak
the same place.
It comes and it's going to
comes
come back to the same. But
place.
importantly, I want to identify that that house or that house is a house that has legitimacy for that firearm. I want to identify that first off, because there's a FUL. And the picking up of that firearm was picked up in the circumstances where someone's life is in immediate danger or family
lives.
is in immediate danger.
Yeah.
So again, self-defense is available in that circumstances. And that, respectfully in my view, would not amount to transferring, because there was no transfer from the FUL holder.
Yeah.
It was a situation that unfolding that caused the wife to use the firearm to be able to defend.
If she didn't reach it, something else could have happened.
That's correct. And that's how we have to weigh those circumstances.
But,
But,
and from what you would have said, is there a level of sensitivity when victims are being questioned in that scenario?
life for law enforcement, then?
And this is where I want to make this point, that those who are entrusted with conducting investigations ought to be very careful and ensure that they are, if they are not competent, that they get competent administrative and legal directions in relation to conducting that inquiry. So that you will be able to, because let's be real, the average citizen may not know what is important, or whether that I could take it as to minutes before, as opposed to coming directly as to the actual use. So that investigation needs to be done to ensure that there is fairness and it is balanced in relation to all parties in relation to that matter.
Around so and so day and so time, me and my wife were at home, we were relaxing, taking in the television, beyond the tape, and so on. We were having a splendid day discussing what we would have done. You know, my husband just came from the hospital because he had some issues, and we were talking, and next thing you know, we saw persons running in the home. Yeah? And then I would like to go into all of that. What happened then? What happens after? How do you feel now? And all these things, because it's important to bring out that aspect of, because here we are, we were at our home, relaxing, and you came, you know.
Yeah.
Or may I just offer something, Senior Soup, in relation to what you're saying in building?
Yeah.
It may be a situation where the intruder who met his demise, I saw him opposite my house 2 days ago.
Yeah, looking in.
But I didn't pay
no
attention.
mind. Yeah.
So immediately in that circumstances, you can see that there was what? There was a build-up to the event. So I'm just saying that there are things that is important in the investigation, and also for
That
persons
should be
to
noted.
know, tell the police everything. We will determine what needs to be considered, what needs to not be considered, and all matters will be placed to the DPP for a proper decision on the matter.
We're coming back.
Yeah.
We cannot end the program today without discussing this very important topic, because a number of persons are out there waiting for us to raise it, you know. Because there's this term we use in Trinidad and Tobago, vigilante justice.
Right.
And we feel, because someone has come into our home to rob us, that we can tie them up, we could beat them until they are bloody, we could jump on their neck, we could hit them with a hammer in their head. What does the law say about what we term in Trinidad and Tobago as vigilante justice?
Again, excellent area. And we have seen some examples of that. Now, while I know the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago, emotions fly, a crime has occurred against their family or their community, and they're very emotional. But I want to say that while they have the power to arrest offenders, that's civilian power of arrest under the criminal law as well, when persons commit crimes, it's important that we recognize the proportionality of the administering of force, whether in effecting the arrest or in preventing the crime. And that goes to the context of where that proportionality resembles a word called excessive force. So members of the public have to recognize that while they have the authority in law to effect a civilian arrest, while they have the authority to effect an arrest or to prevent crime, and then hand over to the police, once they bring that situation under control, they must control their emotions, because from being a good Samaritan, you may be on the other side facing, you're not obliged to say anything unless you wish to do so, which means that you are now subject to a criminal investigation with reference to what you would have done.
Another call.
Good evening, caller.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yes.
The other day you all show a video where a gentleman was going in a window. Let's say I was outside, I forget my cutlass outside, and I went to pick it up to bring it inside, and I happened to see these legs outside the window, and I cut off the two legs. Where is my position there?
Well, let me explain this scenario.
You're a bit intense, eh?
What happened is this: some men, a home invasion, and they were entering person's home, and he was entering from his head first, and his two legs outside. But apparently the owner of the house, let's say the owner of the house, in her case, she said that she's outside the home, and he didn't see her. Should she allow him to go into the home, where there might be other persons on the inside, young children, girls, and all of that? Or should she put a stop to it there and then by use of a weapon to dismember the brother?
Very interesting scenario as well. And I want to answer it in this. When we are looking at breaking and entering, case law clearly suggests or clearly explains what will amount to entering. And that part of that body already serviced inside that house, and this person is seeing that person coming in. It's very clear what is transpiring. That person, that homeowner, again, circumstances cannot be in isolation. It has to be weighed in its entirety. So the question is, that person presenting their body into or through the window is not a place to pass. I didn't invite you.
And we don't know what the person is armed with.
Correct.
Because of how they enter the house.
Correct. Time of the day. You talk about persons, you may have your children in the house. You may have valuables in your house. So I'm saying in this situation, if you as the homeowner believe that your life is in immediate danger by virtue of what it is transpiring, again, the law of self-defense will be available to you in those circumstances.
Legal Officer Ali, you take a look at this. Just turn around and take a look at what is happening there at this time. And this is one of the scenarios. This person, it looks like it's night time. You can see the lights are on. This person opened the window to a residence and making his way inside the home of the residence, probably to the room where my little daughter is sleeping. Mr. Hopkinson. So put yourself in that situation, my legal officer, Mr. Ali, from the TTPS. Tell us how you think a homeowner could address this situation that we just saw.
Well, again, that's a situation where once the homeowner weighs the situation and a person is entering, and I use the word entering, breaking, entering, but just using the word entering, with the intention to commit an arrestable offense. And may I say here, I would like the law to go beyond an arrestable offense, Senior Superintendent. Arrestable offense seems to be carrying a penalty of 5 years and more. I want to call on the legislators, respectfully on this show, to make it any offense, as opposed to with the intention to commit an arrest, with the intention to commit any offense, so that we more strict on persons who are operating in that particular scenario. But again, once the homeowner weighs the situation with that person entering with the intention to commit an arrestable offense, or there are many situations, and you spoke about expression. What you are coming through the window and I tell you, go back, there's a response. Expressive, not expressive, demeanor, what it is happening. I want the homeowners to think, weigh the circumstances, understand the situation. Now I'm saying all this like, remember, we have a split second. So we are also in a situation where honest belief and instinctive has to be now applied in these circumstances. Training, and it's good for persons to put themselves through the situation sometimes.
Discuss some scenarios with your family. And what option do you have?
Now we do have
Good evening, caller.
Good evening, caller. Caller, are you there?
I am there. Good evening, Marlon. And
Come
good
on
evening,
down.
Mr. Alexander.
So,
And to your special host, Mr. Ali.
how you do?
Mr. Ali, I have a question for you. You there, right? You hear me?
I'm
Yeah,
hearing
yeah,
you,
yeah.
sir. Proceed.
Ali, I want to ask this. Why do we not see persons appearing before the court for murder? For attempt murder. Here why I'm asking this, because plenty of the times I will see some shooting or wounding or something like that. But I wouldn't see attempt murder. And I want to know why it is the law seems to not be concentrating on the intention of the person. In that, if I come with a gun to shoot you and I shoot you in your torso area, your chest, whatever, I think my intention is obvious to kill you. Because you ain't dead, I don't know why it is the police might go down or the law might see it as a wounding. I'm just asking. Similarly, if I kick you in your head without a weapon and while you on the ground, I stamp you in your head, why not go down that road? Why the law don't see that? If the law sees it, you could correct me if I'm wrong. Why that is not an attempt to kill somebody, even if it be with my foot? I was just brainstorming and thinking these things in terms of the law. Why it seems as if the law does weaken the intention. To me, the intention is to kill. The intention is to send you to that next side. But because of the injury sometimes, because your head might be a little harder than your ordinary man, it can mash you up. You know what I'm saying? Or you might be able to withstand a bullet or two. It can kill you. Why it seems, if you understand my question a little bit, why it seems that the law don't take it that, you're charged for a more serious offense that either, attempt murder or something like that?
Well, caller, let me acknowledge your inquiry. And let me take the first scenario that you give in terms of where someone used a firearm, which is deadly force. I think you're on the right track in terms of your thinking. And I want to share this perspective with you as well. There's a particular case that I was shooting with where I was looking at a case file. And that same scenario came up where the charge wasn't attempted murder. But when I looked at the factual scenario where a firearm was used, multiple shots were fired. And then what the medical came back with, it was clear that you saw an intention to inflict grievous bodily harm. And once you see an intention to cause grievous bodily harm, that is also one of the mens rea. If someone should die, that will be sufficient to charge someone for murder. So I want to agree with the caller in terms of, in those situations, I'm asking senior officers and legal officers to weigh those situations carefully to see whether, in fact, an attempted murder may be very present in these circumstances. So I think it's a very good point the caller made. In terms of the second issue of kicking someone in the head, I want to be a little bit more cautious with that, because there's an offense of an assault occasioning actual bodily harm or grievous bodily harm. So in that situation with kicking in the head, I'll want to see a medical coming back to see what is the degree or the extent of the injuries. So I'll be a little bit cautious with that one, but definitely in terms of the one with the possession of the firearm, where someone is discharging firearm, that is something that we will want to consider. So I want to thank the caller for that issue.
Right. And again, we must go to a very short break. We'll be right back. 9 minutes of the program, but let me ask, because we have been discussing for close to an hour and a half about violence, and the response has been violence against violence. So is there any other option?
Well, remember, as I indicated earlier, that once there's the alternative and the opportunity to to communicate with the police, or maybe any other, like for example, you have the watch groups, you have community security patrols, and so once you have the alternative and the time, you can reach out to these persons to be able to get the assistance. But it all comes down to, again, the scenario that is unfolding before you, and whether you have the capacity in all respect to treat with the scenario.
30 seconds. Quick work by officers of the Southern Division resulted in the arrest of a suspect and the recovery of a quantity of items which were reported stolen, following a report of robbery with violence in the Princestown district yesterday.
Another home invasion, eh?
Reports indicate that 2 victims were at their Bordnav village home at around 6:45 p.m. when they were allegedly accosted by 4 armed intruders who tied them up and relieved them of a quantity of valuables.
Inclusive of
a licensed firearm and ammunition belonging to one of the victims was also taken from the house. The assailants then made their escape on foot. Right? And all points bulletin was issued.
Yeah, Princess Tom CID, task force, another person responded, and
persons were arrested, huh?
yeah, and a car was crashed, yeah, and then the officers detained 1 person and recover a number of items. Law enforcement responds to home invasion, as you can see, because of where these patrols are, these grids, we're doing something called patrol grids.
Yes,
and because of, you heard the commissioner mention it before, these patrol grids, these officers are in areas where they can respond. And not 1 officer, not 2 officers, not 3 officers, a number of persons placed at particular areas, the grids, so that they can respond accordingly in order to help us to cope with crime. Because, Marlon, this home invasion thing is getting very, very serious, and the impact on our citizens. Yeah?
We just have a few minutes again,
All right,
sir.
Mr. Ali?
Yeah, I just want to, in a few minutes, just to reiterate the issue of use of force and self-defense that emerges from the common law and then into the statute, the Criminal Law Act. Again, a person may use such force as reasonable in the circumstances in assisting or effecting an arrest in prevention of crime or assisting in the arrest of persons unlawfully at large. Once we master the understanding of that particular provision, and once we master the context of where force is not that is used must be necessary, and it must also be reasonable in the circumstances, most of the times, applying the law to the factual scenario, we will get it right. So I just want to urge members of the public to think, expose themselves to training, discussions in relation to these issues. We see it appears to be a prevalent issue in terms of persons coming into your home, taking control of your home, a number of offenses, very serious offenses. And it's important for us to use the law as effective as possible in defending our lives and the lives of our loved ones, and generally for the protection of everyone.
And at the same time, secure your homes in such a way to make it almost difficult, or as difficult as possible, for them to enter your premises. Eh?
All right. Thank you very much again, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Repeat tonight at 11:30. Repeat tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock with TV6 News comes up at 7.
I had to ask him a question, but I can't ask him again.